Welcome to the Be Ruthless Show, where we have the conversations that other people don't, the conversations that other people won't. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I'm ready to make a lot of noise and disrupt things ruthlessly. Thanks for being here today. Now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Be Ruthless Show. I'm your host, Sam Ruth, and I cannot start this episode without acknowledging the Lions. Over 30 years since they've won a playoff game, and I am telling you, Jim is celebrating and working his magic because I haven't seen anything like this in decades. It blows my mind that we weren't there. That's definitely something that I have grown up doing my whole life and something we did together. So it is just wonderful to see all of the happiness in Detroit. Congratulations to the Lions, the fans. It is such a fun time. It's also Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There's so many awareness days, but we all know that it is Martin Luther King Day. That's on our calendars. The majority of schools are closed observing this day. And I want to take some time today to talk about why that matters and why that's so important and how far we've come. I started my career in Royal Oak, Michigan, which is where I'm from, that area. And when I moved out to Livonia, Michigan, which is in Wayne County, I was really in a different neck of the woods. It is a waspy area, and I was my naive little self walking in and marking on the calendar, that I would be off on these days for the Jewish holidays. And people looked at me and honestly said to me, "You can't put that on the calendar. This is not an area that you can acknowledge being Jewish. This is not that kind of area." And schools were open in those counties back when I started there. And now I love that those schools are also closed, because I would have my nieces who weren't born yet then, but those school districts, Royal Oak, where I grew up, Oakland County, schools were closed. But in Wayne County, a lot of the schools were not in those areas. And look how far we've come. And why? What does it stand for? What does it represent? Why do we take time to acknowledge the day? And why does it matter to me? I think it's important for everyone to be treated equally, but in my mission, I'm really, really working hard for the invisible populations, right? And I feel like maybe we can look at today and see why my fight is so relevant, why it is so important, because it might not be as blatant as racial discrimination or slavery or separate bathrooms. There are problems in this world. There are people who have less access to care, and we all deserve care. And that is one of the quotes that I saw when I was looking up Martin Luther King and why today matters, and some of his quotes. Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. That's one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s quotes. NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, acknowledged that today, because while we have come far in many, many areas, we still really do have a long way to go in others. And so I want to let you know some other things that are happening that you probably don't know. Today is also Blue Monday. Have you heard of it? Do you know what it is? It's a day to deal with feelings of sadness and depression that people deal with. A lot of people in the winter struggle more. And so it is a time to remind people to prioritize their mental health and seek support if needed. And so, to me, obviously, in my mission to change the way the world views grief and mental illness so that people can openly speak about whatever issues they have and get the help they not only need but deserve without the fear of judgments, labels, and repercussions, Blue Monday matters. But is it on your calendar? Do you know it even exists? There are 4 other things happening just this week alone. I'm not even talking about all of January, just this week alone. On Wednesday, we have International We Are Not Broken Day. For those of you who are listening to a replay and not live, January 17th of this year, 2024. And what does this day matter? This talks about all of the people dealing with physical or emotional trauma or mental illness or disorder, the invisible. Again, also it includes amputations, which are visible, but it's just talking about treating everyone equally and that we are all human beings. And the We Are Not Broken Day campaign is about coming together and what we can do for the people who really do struggle with depression and isolation and feeling so separated because of things like an illness or a disorder or even grief and trauma. This isn't something that is wrong with any of us. We didn't do anything wrong, right? But we're looked at differently. On Friday, this Friday, January 19th, it's Good Memory Day. And I feel like it's kind of the opposite of Blue Monday. Good Memory Day is a day devoted to looking through cherished memories from the past and the present, while also acknowledging the importance of making new memories, no matter what we're going through. And we have all had things in life, but taking time to think about the good moments, sharing those stories, right? This is a really important day to me that, again, isn't on calendars and the world doesn't know it exists, but it's what I do every day. I share a story about Jim with someone every day, and let me not tell, I started this episode with the Lions and watching it without him, knowing we would be there, knowing he is jumping up and down after years. You have to understand what it's like to be a Detroit Lions fan. We have lived through loss after loss after loss, just so many horrible records, but not just being one. He, when living in Michigan like me, had season tickets and would go to the games. And so we watched it, we suffered in person all of the agonizing losses, and then you move across the country and you still devote your time and you find a way to watch the Lions, which they're not televised, right? And back when he first moved here, DirecTV wasn't a thing. So going out and connecting with people in Colorado who are also from Detroit and who love football, so much a part of his life, my life here. And a day like Good Memory Day is a day that celebrates sharing those stories when the rest of the days of the year, the world is uncomfortable talking about our grief or our lost loved ones or our memories. And while I'm working to help educate and help people understand that the only way we become more comfortable is by actually doing it, until we get there, we can have this day where people who feel like they can't talk about memories on other days have this day. But if it's not acknowledged, if you do not know it exists, if it's not on your calendar, how do you participate and make this a part of your world? Then we end the week, depending on how you look at Sundays, as either the ending of this week or the beginning of next week. Oh, I missed one. I apologize. Saturday, we have the International Day of Acceptance on January 20th to talk about the power of not only accepting things, Um, but I mean, not only accepting people, but also accepting things, all of the things that are outside of our control, all of the things we go through, but again, accepting the disabilities and these invisible populations. And it's a day that, I don't know, pull out your calendars. I'd love to know. Sam@SamanthaRuth.com, comment in the show notes. Is it on your calendars? I really don't think it is. Then we turn to Sunday, the 21st of January, and it's Hunt for Happiness Week. Again, along this same theme, it's a week devoted to encouraging everyone to take a closer look at what happiness means to you, how you define it, and what you can do to have more happiness in your life, not only in each and every day and moment, but long-lasting happiness, and how to benefit from simple things we can do, especially during the difficult times. So this is just one section, 1 week of January that I'm talking about, awareness dates that are important to me, that the world doesn't know exists. How can we be here for these invisible populations if we don't know about these days? This obviously, I have created the Grief Hab 2024 awareness calendar. It's not about Grief Hab or the calendar. It's about raising awareness. You have people in your world, I promise you, that could benefit from you knowing about these days this week. Maybe you pick up the phone, maybe you send a note, maybe you do something a little bit extra for people in your life who you know are struggling. And that doesn't mean you don't care about them other days or weeks. But if we know these days exist, it's no different than having a birthday on our calendars. So I spent all of 2022 fighting to get these days added to calendars. And when that wasn't getting me anywhere, I just created my own. And you can support all of this. You can support and be part of the change. And maybe in a decade, we'll be talking about mental health NAMI Day. Maybe there will be a day devoted to all of the progress we are making by having these conversations. I want Martin Luther King Jr. Day to absolutely celebrate the progress we've made and all of his work, but I also want to learn from him and do what he did and do what we can with one voice. And I'm doing that with mine. You can share the link for this episode. You can share the link for the calendar. By the way, the calendar has artwork designed by kids and a teen or two impacted by loss. The artwork alone is impactful. But the dates, again, I just mentioned this week. If you're listening to a replay, I mean, it could be any week. There are awareness days and weeks that celebrate these invisible populations and things that we can do to be more supportive as individuals, but also as communities, create more resources. How can we come together and do more? So no matter what day you're listening to, no matter what week or month, I promise you there's an awareness day that matters to you or someone in your life that you probably don't know about. And I've done my best to include every single one on this calendar. I may have missed one and I will improve it for next year. I already have people asking me if they can submit pictures for next year's calendar. It will again, of course, be artwork designed by kids. I think it is so, so powerful. And I can fill you up with quotes and statistics and all types of different things to let you know what loss and grief and trauma do, and the fact that they never end. But I think these pictures say more from the eyes of a child. And again, I just wanted to take time today to talk about why the world has created a national holiday. Banks are closed, schools are closed, and I'm celebrating that. I am not at all judging or criticizing it, but why, how do we get there with these other important things? Again, bereavement days. When you experience a loss, you won't know this until it happens to you, but people are given 1 to 3 days. 1 to 3 days for an unexpected life event. But for pregnancy, maternity leave, when you are planning for life, we not only give you weeks and months, we've now added paternity leave. These are all the things that I'm doing and people in my field and in this movement are working to create change and conversation and do things to make a difference. Paid Family Medical Leave Act. It's not paid in all states. In some states, you have to use your vacation time and your sick time before you're eligible for your medical leave. This is not what we need to be dealing with when we're going through a crisis. When crisis happens, we need medical support behind us. We just need to be able to take time off, know that we're covered and that our job is secure. What can we do? Employers, if you're listening, please buy this calendar for everyone in your office or everyone on your team. It's not about me and the calendar. It's about these days that I promise you will matter to you someday, if not already. You have someone in your life who has had a loss to suicide. You know someone who's lost a loved one, and there are so many days. And today reminds me of that. It reminds me of one man who fought against something that seemed impossible, and people thought he wouldn't get anywhere. And lo and behold, people joined him because his mission mattered, his voice mattered, his words mattered, and they still do. And we can apply them and still live them in whatever way that matters to you. To me, that's mental illness and grief. Maybe to you, that's cancer, right? All of these awareness days matter. There's a medical awareness day. I can't even tell you how many exist. Think about all of the invisible medical diagnoses that people are walking around with. There's awareness days for each, not just National Cancer Awareness Day, but each and every form of cancer. These things matter, and they don't matter to you until you go through a trauma and someone in your world has that cancer diagnosis. And then I promise you, you are sharing that logo and sharing that awareness day and starting a 5K run to raise money and doing things to make noise. But there are hundreds of these days that we all can work together. You can share this episode. You can support this calendar. You can support Grief Hab. This is not about me. This is about making a difference in the mental illness and grief culture. This world believes that there's enough support, that the support is adequate. And I get calls or emails daily from people who have reached out to providers and never gotten a phone call back. Or there's X number of weeks, maybe months wait list before they can be seen. Now, you know this because you've had to reach out for help at some point in your life. It's not fun. It's not easy. And when you do it, that's when you need the help. 3 weeks later, not everyone will still be there. They might have given up, and some of them might have given up on life. We cannot afford to not return a phone call or to be putting people on wait lists. If we need to be having more people like me on task forces dealing just with creating budgets so that you have benefits and we can do these things, that's a job in and of itself. but your voice matters. And even letting people know that, you know what? There are times that I struggled and I could have had more support at work. It would have been nice too. In the future, it would be nice too. People don't know if we don't tell them. And some people are afraid to ask. And the open-ended, do you need anything? The surveys that employers send out, sometimes that's too open-ended and people might not think of those answers. We need these specific questions. What do you need when you are dealing with loss? What can we do to be more supportive when you are coming to work at a time of trauma? What is it that adds stress? What can we do to relieve stress? There are companies that call me in to do trainings. There are companies that call me in to work with their staff. There are companies that pay to get support for their staff. These are all options, and we need to start having the conversation. So if it's grief, if it's mental illness, if it is physical illness and disability, whatever it is, we are the invisible populations, and these days matters. So these days matter. So thank you for allowing me to take an important day and an important man who has done so much, and allowing me to share this message that applies to what I live and breathe and do. And if you'd like to get involved, please reach out. There are so many ways that I will not bore you with here, but please reach out, sam@samantharuth.com, just sharing the posts. But you can be a part of the community in so many other ways. If you are not a part of Grief Hab yet, please join the community. For anyone dealing with loss or anyone who just wants to learn how to support people going through loss. This is something we all need everywhere, and there is no wait. So thank you again. Go Lions. Congratulations. Go Blue. I'll say that again. What a year 2024 is turning out for the city in Detroit, Michigan. Wow. Who would have thought? Thank you again. Please reach out to be a part of this. There are so many ways that your voice matters and so many things you can do to be a part of this. And again, thank you for just being a part of my community and my world. Until next time, always be ruthless. Thanks so much for listening today. Your support means everything to me, truly. If this podcast resonates with you, please do me a favor and join in the Ruthless movement by making some noise and doing one of these 4 things. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Tell a friend so we can break stigmas even faster. Leave a review so people can see what you think of the show. And last, if you want to learn more about me and be a part of the Grief Hab community, please head on over to the Facebook group. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for spending your time with us, and see you next week.